407 years ago, or in other words, a very long time ago. If we're talking internet terms, this is basically prehistoric. I'm of course talking about 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I, for the first time, played a PETA game. That game was Kitten Squad. I played it on stream and turned it into a video. Little did I know what would come after that video. What followed was a 19-part video series with millions of cumulative views, and I gained about a couple new subscribers from it. However, since Kitten Squad was the first video I had ever made on PETA, I never gave it a proper review as my current format was not developed yet. The video was just a stream highlight. Meanwhile, with every single PETA video that I reviewed after that video, I was able to completely dive into every aspect of each game and really organize my thoughts. My Kitten Squad video did show off the game, but it was just a let's play that didn't even have the proper visual settings on for the first 3 minutes. Plus, I didn't even play through most levels. Not to mention the fact that I see many people comment about how Kitten Squad is their favorite PETA game, and they actually enjoyed it. So I've been thinking maybe there's some magic to Kitten Squad that I just haven't found yet, and if I gave it a proper review, then maybe I would. I have now played every single level, sat through the entire heart-wrenching storyline, and have all of my thoughts organized. So, without further ado, let's revisit PETA's brutal game, Kitten Squad. Kitten Squad is a free-to-play action roguelike. Or that's what I've been told by people. I really don't think this game is a roguelike or roguelite at all. A roguelike and a roguelite are games that are meant to be replayed over and over. Think The Binding of Isaac or Hades. Yet Kitten Squad does not have the randomization factor. At least not to the degree where it switches up the gameplay. The only thing that seems to be random are the enemy drops, which is how many games are anyway. In my original Kitten Squad video, I clickbaited this game with The Binding of Isaac, but only because my entire channel was based around Isaac at the time. I genuinely think the comparisons between these two games are far and few between. There's a website dedicated to being an encyclopedia of crappy games, and there they even label it as a more repetitive and boring version of Isaac. And I have seen so many people on and off of my channel compare it to Isaac, but literally the only main similarities that I've noticed is the fact that it's a twin-stick shooter with similar room sizes and camera angles. Other than that, in my opinion, I feel like it's a stretch to compare the two. Looking at the two side by side, I can see why people say this, but mechanically, they are so different. But maybe I'm alone here and I just love defending this poor crying child at all costs. I don't know, I digress. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning of the game. You play as a kitten and start off in a hub world where you have 3 NPCs you can talk to. The bird in the middle acts as a tutorial who also gives fun animal facts, mostly about animal abuse such as lamb's testicles getting removed. The pirate dog gives you side quests to complete during main quests, and the deer gives you those main quests. There's also a shop where you can buy cosmetics off in the corner. Every time you choose a quest, you're given a lengthy cutscene. They all read very similarly. There's an animal who's been abused and you need to put an end to the abuse by either freeing them or killing their abusers, as that is more ethical. I never claimed to be the most knowledgeable about these alleged facts that PETA puts in their games, but I'm sure that most, if not all of this stuff, are real issues that do happen on real farms. The problem is PETA is acting as if they're completely universal. Not to mention, none of this makes for a good plot in a video game, and it doesn't even fit the overall tone. If you don't know what I mean by that last part, here's footage of me reading out loud the story as I'm playing this game just for footage. Michael will have to endure this abuse year after year, but with your help he can be freed from this life as a commodity. He could be a sheep once more. It goes from sheep getting slaughtered to this happy, upbeat music that completely juxtaposes their story. The thing is, PETA's main way of going about stuff is with extreme guilt trips or shocking content. But when your guilt trip is followed by this lighthearted music and this bright game, your guilt trip isn't really going to be very effective. People's moods will be instantly changed. So if that's the case, then why even make the guilt trip at all? Plus, if you're trying to get kids into your message of animal rights, a lengthy, slow-paced cutscene doesn't seem the best way to do it. Another plot point is where 2 orcas are bleeding and one commits unaliving by bashing their heads in. So like I said, this game is a twin-stick shooter, which means you control the character with one thumb and shoot with the other. All you have to do is shoot the enemies and dodge until you kill them all, and then you move on to the next room. But saying you dodge in this game is me being polite, as most of the gameplay is either run in circles or run, then stop until they catch up, and then do it again. There are a variety of enemies, but none shake up the room enough to make the strategy of most rooms change. Certain levels do have certain enemies based on which animal you're trying to help, but that doesn't change anything. If you ever get cornered by literally any group of enemies, you'll not be able to move at all. All you can do is shoot and hope you kill all the enemies before they kill you. It's easy enough to not get cornered, but one small mistake can cost you the entire level. Enemies in destructible crates can drop 3 different things: coins, hearts, and weapons. Coins are only used for cosmetics, so they're worthless unless you care about that. But with this amazing art style, how could you not care? You can also buy a cosmetic pack on consoles for real money, if you, for some reason, felt the need. Hearts obviously fill up your HP. They spawn constantly, often in groups, so you never have to worry about running out. Weapons are more of an annoyance than anything else. Most guns do work just fine, with a few that seem to be slightly better than others. So once you find your favorite gun in each level, you can just keep it the rest of the time and avoid the rest. And you are more than likely to find your favorite weapon very quickly in each level, because guns are spawned so often. You can experiment with other guns if you want to, but it is pointless. There's no items in this game, no synergies or upgrades, and your guns don't run out of ammo, so what's stopping you from using the same gun the entire game? Guns quickly become something you just avoid so you don't accidentally pick up a gun you don't like. Not to mention there's some not so good guns, but the worst by far is the tomato gun. It has an incredibly short range and leaves a puddle behind that slows you and the enemies down. But since the range is so short, it mostly just slows you down and makes it hard to even hit enemies. So if you pick up the tomato gun in a room with all long-range enemies, good luck. And by the way, some gun sound effects are incredibly annoying, and I noticed the sound effects overshadow the music at all times. Not that the soundtrack is stellar, it's just some dramatic music most of the time. I never had this problem, but according to the Crappy Games wiki, some weapons cannot be fired when being too close to a wall. Firing along the wall side will result in hitting the wall, stopping your projectiles from being able to hit enemies. In the game, there's only 14 quests in total, but there's only 3 different types of quests: freeing animals, boss levels, and survival levels. The only difference between these quests are the endings. All of the beginnings play out exactly the same. This is all footage from 4 completely different levels, but you would never be able to tell. Like I said, every time I replayed each level, I didn't notice any changes, so I do not think this game is even a roguelike. Most levels aren't too long, but they're all the same, so once you've played one, you've basically played them all. But what about the 3 different types of endings I talked about earlier? Well, freeing the animals mean you just free the animals throughout, or at the end of the level, as your objective. And once you reach that objective, the level ends. I would say this is the least inspired and interesting type of level. Boss levels just have a boss at the end. The bosses are usually an evil version of a job like sheep shearing or a circus ringmaster, but sometimes they create weird storylines that create characters like the sheep puncher. Aside from some occasional questionable hitboxes, these fights range from okay to what is happening. Like, I could figure out this boss way easier if it wasn't for the overwhelming amount of bright lights and moving parts. The best boss was probably the circus ringmaster. First of all, the screen was clear, so that's automatically 1 point awarded. This boss had 3 phases that upped the difficulty each time, and it actually had me on my toes for most of the fight. With that being said, once I figured the boss out, the strategy continued to devolve into running around in circles and shooting, but I definitely had the most fun playing this game during this boss fight. So anyway, the survival levels are absolute ass. These are the worst levels in the game. You have to survive 30 painfully slow waves. Most of them are boring and no problem, but some make it feel as if it's near impossible to not get hit. It is so infuriating to play an entire level and go through over 10 waves just to die because the screen completely fills up with enemies. There is multiplayer in this game, but it really changes nothing. It just makes it easier to steamroll most levels. It does sound handy to help with the survival levels, it's just too bad there's no online multiplayer, so people will have to use a second-party software. If you are going to play this game, the most value you're going to get is from the boss fights, as they mix up the tedious gameplay the most, but even then, that is not worth playing this game for. However, this game is free and all quests are unlocked from the start, so if you're just that bored and cannot find any other free games to play, then I recommend just doing the boss levels and then uninstalling. Now let's talk about how hideous this game is. I mean, you've been looking at it, so you don't really need me to tell you, but let's break it down anyway. Remember how earlier I said I had the wrong visual settings applied when I first played the game? Well, what happened was I had my recording software set to remove green from my green screen applied to the the gameplay by mistake, and many people then commented saying the game looked better that way, so take that for what you will. I know I played this game in HD, but for the most part this still looks like an awful Flash game made in 2005. Honestly, the only visual points I give this game are for the 3 characters in the hub world. I think they look kinda cool, but other than that, oh god. Every level starts off with this grassy area surrounded by rocks, and honestly, what's going on here? Why are these patterns the way they are? Actually, there seems to be no pattern or sense of design, it all seems random to me. I noticed that halfway through each level, the visuals would change depending on which animal you're saving. Dolphins have this icy or watery vibe going on. I'd say this one is the most appalling and confusing to look at. The lions and elephants get this circus theme, which I would say is the most visually appealing, yet I wouldn't say it looks beautiful by any means. Sheep levels have this more wooden setting, as if you're inside a barn or something. Cows have a more rusty and metallic theme, as if you're inside a more rusty and metallic barn? I don't know, I'm sure these could be explained a bit better. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you think, but my point is they all look ugly. Plus, oftentimes in these levels, the visuals give you an illusion of more things to do. By that I mean there's oftentimes an extra door that can never be opened, along with stairs to platforms that you cannot climb. And I just ask, what is the point of this? Sometimes guns can even spawn on one of the platforms that you just can't reach. Now onto the wonderful enemy design. The enemies are supposed to be robots of different things like meat hooks, dairy farmers, or these things, whatever the hell this is, and balls of wool with bloody knives sticking out? It's so hard to figure out what most of these enemies are supposed to be, and none of them even look good to top it all off. By the way, this game is available on the Switch, PS4, and PC. However, for some reason on the PS4, this game only runs on 720p despite the console being able to handle HD. I didn't find any information on the Switch and Steam version, I just assume it's HD. Speaking of the Switch, it's also bizarre that this game is on the Switch to begin with, given PETA's history of their distasteful Nintendo parodies. Another good point that the crappy games wiki brings up is that, even though SeaWorld has said that they would end their orca shows and breeding program, and are planning to build an orca-free park in the United Arab Emirates, PETA still insists on attacking them by using an inverse parody called Sealand. Now, I didn't beat every single level in this game, but I did play every single one of them. I intended to beat them all, but it's not worth putting up with the survival levels. If the co-op was online, I'd give it a try, but since it isn't, I'll pass. I mentioned this before, but to reiterate, once you have played one level, you have played them all. Yes, there are minor differences to each level, but it will get stale and repetitive very, very quickly. And nothing sucks more than replaying a level after dying at the very end, as there is no checkpoints. I can understand why people may like this game at first. The first level isn't a terrible time. The game may look ugly, but it controls fine, and it will give you the illusion of variety with all the weapons it throws at you. However, once you play the second level, or maybe a few more, you should really start to notice the repetitive nature. However, a lot of people in my comments do seem to enjoy it nonetheless. I have to imagine these people didn't play for very long or have never played a similar game to this. If you play any game remotely similar, you'll realize how surface level Kitten Squad really is. Plus, with the annoying sound effects and disturbing story, I find it hard to believe that so many people can actually love this game. But if that's not the case for you and you genuinely like it, then I don't know, I guess you're just built different. I won't argue with you, and of course I'll let you like what you like, but I just wish what you liked wasn't this very lazy game made by PETA of all companies. While I do think this is one of the best games PETA has ever made, I don't think this is a good game. Now let's say I did beat the entire game, what would happen? Well, there's no completion reward once you beat the game. All that happens is the deer tells you congratulations on rescuing all of the animals, and that's it. And with that, I have finally made my proper review of Kitten Squad. Now I have another update on the future of this fabulous PETA series. If you've seen my community tab, you'll know that we're making another PETA slideshow video. Those videos, of course, are my friends Kyle and Josh creating their very own gaming PETA parody concepts. We plan to only make 2 more of these types of videos, and that's just because there's only so many PETA parodies we can create before the jokes get stale. So instead, after those 2 videos, we plan to make more slideshows or stories or just videos of us making art on completely different topics, just like we've done in the past, and you guys seem to have really enjoyed those, so if you just have seen the PETA series, I really hope you give them a shot. Other than that, of course, I'll still be making my other types of content, but as far as the PETA series is concerned, if there's anything else about PETA that I find, then maybe I'll still cover it. The only problem is I just don't know what other PETA content there is to cover. I know they have their lawsuits, their controversies, their controversial ads and commercials. The only problem is I don't have as much of an interest in covering the more dark and depressing side of PETA as opposed to their more lighthearted video games or comics or stupid TikToks. So basically, I do not intend to cover any PETA videos on the deeply disturbing side of PETA. There's other YouTubers like Illuminati who have made fantastic videos covering those topics already. So if you want more in-depth videos on PETA that I do not intend to cover, then check her out. I'll put her in the description. So with that being said, if there's anything else PETA related that you think I would enjoy covering, then let me know. If there isn't anything that catches my eye, then maybe I'll have to wait for PETA to release more stupid content that I want to cover. Or maybe the PETA series will come to an end, or maybe I'll speedrun all of the garbage PETA games like I've been thinking about doing for a while. Regardless, it's been a very fun ride so far. I appreciate all of you guys for your support so much. And with that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday.
You can push stuff? This game's epic. I didn't know. I thought you were just like,
you can
you're
push
gonna hit
stuff?
or something. You didn't know that? Wow, some Kitten Squad expert you are.
I have to redo my entire video now, god damn.
Could you actually have like a I was about done this video and then Josh
then I'll just play that clip.